And now, here are your hosts, the Schnitzel Boys.
All right, is it time?
Is it time? Time
to
for what?
hop
What should we... Oh, yes.
Is it time to hop over, to do a jump and a skip over the fence over to this side of the
it's
neck of the
time
woods?
Here it is.
for the American Soccer Rundown.
The American Soccer Rundown. We will start in the East, where the New York Red Bulls, your team, earned a playoff spot with a point on the road at Nashville. That game ending 1-1. Same as NYCFC and the Philadelphia Union, also 1-1, despite NYCFC being down a man for most of the game. Orlando City beat Montreal 2-0 with great goals from Mendes and Daryl Dike to earn their spot and eliminate Montreal. Columbus beat a limp Chicago 2-0. Not enough for them to get through. Same for DC United. They beat Toronto 3-1, also just barely missing the playoffs this year. Atlanta made it, beating Cincinnati 2-1, confirmed their place. And finally, Inter Miami beat the Supporters Shield winning New England on the road, which really meant nothing because they're out and their season is over. In the West, it seemed like was going to be a two-way race between the Seattle Sounders and Sporting KC, but Seattle only managed to tie against Vancouver. Vancouver sneaking into the playoffs. Sporting Kansas City also didn't make it. They lose to RSL as your adopted German, Damir Kreilach, scoring at the death. And RSL making it. The West was won completely surprisingly by Robin Fraser's Colorado Rapids, who beat LAFC 5-2, 2 goals from Jonathan Lewis. And with the Galaxy and Minnesota battling to a 3-3 draw, that means both LA teams missed the playoffs. San Jose played to a 1-1 draw with FC Dallas, and that meant Chris Wondolowski's final game. He finally hangs it up. And Portland defeating Austin FC 3-0 to end their inaugural season. And that is your American Soccer Rundown, with the music having run out a while ago.
We're still figuring it out, but that right there was a great rundown. A really exciting week of action for the MLS, like a game of musical chairs. Everyone trying to vie get their way into the playoffs, and a couple of teams missed out: Montreal, Columbus, DC. Among them, LA Galaxy among them. So I went to 2 games this week. I went to the LAFC Vancouver game on Tuesday, and I went to the LA Galaxy Minnesota game yesterday. Both really fun games, really nice.
That was
nights out.
The Galaxy
unfortunately,
game was crazy. Yeah.
Crazy game. 6 goals, missed penalty. And the funny thing about the Galaxy was the whole time they were in the whole time. You know, they're pulling back. Leggett with that great goal before halftime. Chicharito with a brace. And, you know, a point was going to do it for them. And then at the death, Damir Kreilach, the German Croatian American
he's not
superstar.
At all. He's not.
I know he's
German.
Croatian, but Kreilach is German enough for me. It's a German podcast, so when you're here, everyone's German a little bit. So. The Deutsche Kroate, Damir Kreilach, scoring. And we're talking about MVP. Damir Kreilach is also on that short list. He scores all of Real Salt Lake's goals. He scores them when they need him. And I just never been to a place that is so deflated. You know, like when the last whistle, it was like whistle. The lights turned off in the stadium for some reason, and everyone was just quiet. You could hear a pin drop. It was crazy because we had a good game. The Galaxy had a pretty decent game. Now, granted, they should have won it to guarantee it. However, you know, they were home, they were point, they scored, and it was just you could just hear a pin drop. Everyone's just like boo for a minute when they realized what happened. They're just boo. It was just such a weird environment to be in the last game of the season. And you know what's funny about LAFC and LA Galaxy? And I think it's the same with all the MLS clubs. They were both "quote-unquote" fan appreciation night. So when the game was over at LAFC, and they also were essentially eliminated on Tuesday, they lost. What was it? They lose 2-0 to Vancouver or something? No, what was that game?
Who? LAFC? They
LAFC
lost in
Vancouver. Was that 1-0?
No, the LAFC lost to the Rapids. That's
yeah, you're right. It was 1-1 on Tuesday. So it was just a 1-1 home draw. And after both games, the teams had to do a procession where they went around the field and waved to the fans. And
awkward.
And it's like bad timing. Yeah, awkward. And then after LAFC, they had like a fireworks show. And at LAFC, Will Ferrell was there with the Hawk, and the whole cast of Ted Lasso was there. You know, they make a big event of it, but it's like this wasn't great. So it was just two draws for the last home games, and LAFC getting that 5-2 shellacking by Colorado Rapids.
By the
so
Rapids,
it was just a crazy environment.
Yeah. The Rapids decided if no one else wants to win the West, we'll take it. I mean, it's really been over the last few weeks. Both Kansas City and the Sounders had so many opportunities to wrap up the first spot, and they just kept and even till the last day. I mean, the RSL, I wouldn't have put a lot of money on RSL winning on the road at SKC when they were still playing for a first round bye. I mean,
with Bobby Wood on the field, anything's possible, you know. But I think it was all part of Robin Fraser's master plan. This is the plan all along. You know what club Robin Fraser was an assistant coach at once upon a time?
At the Red Bulls?
The New York Red Bulls before he left.
Before he went to
Toronto. Yeah, that's right. I think when Mike Hickey was fired.
So he
fired. He was mad.
He got to Toronto before Chris Armas did?
Yeah. Toronto, for those of you who don't know, is a New York Red Bulls graveyard. So a lot of people, Ali Curtis, Chris Armas, Robin Fraser, when really great, talented people get fired for essentially no reason at the New York Red Bulls, Toronto scoops them up because they're like, that was stupid of them, and scoop them up. And they've been right almost every time. So
what? The Chris Armas? I don't know.
I said almost every time.
That didn't go all that well.
Ali Curtis is a decent GM. Robin Fraser has proven to be a great coach.
He's still playing.
Coach.
He's still paying like $10 million to Michael Bradley and Josie Altidore last season. Is that a?
Well, that's Toronto, and also Ali Curtis didn't do any of that. That's Tim Bezpachenko, and I think they're about to get. And Josie's scoring. Come on now, Josie's scoring. Is he scoring enough to warrant $3 million a year? Maybe not, but he's scoring goals. But anyway, so that was my experience. Did you go to any of the NYCFC? Did you go to the NYCFC
I did,
Philly
yes.
game?
I did go to the NYCFC Philly game, and it was nice. It was also Fan Appreciation Day. I won a team signed jersey.
Really? You won a team signed jersey?
Yeah, my seat was announced on the Jumbotron. I was watching the game. I didn't even pay attention.
Really?
Somebody else had to point it out to me. And I got a jersey that was signed by everyone. It was I felt very appreciated.
Where is it? Is it at home right now?
Yeah. Oh, I didn't. Yeah, I should have.
Should
have shown it up next week for the when before the playoffs actually start. I will. I don't think I'll wear it, but I will show it.
No, good. That's so cool. What kind of chance is that? It's like a 1 in 20,000 chance, right?
I think. Yeah,
I always sit in the nosebleeds, so I'm nowhere near those kinds of things. They never give that stuff out to the nosebleeds.
I think it's every. I do have pretty good seats. I mean, you know, as an early adopter, you have some privileges. Yeah,
perks.
But the game also was exciting. It was nice to see the stadium not full, but definitely better attended than recently. That was good. And Gideon Salalem, formerly of Arsenal, got his first start really ever in his entire time of NYCFC and repaid the coaches. I mean, he got this because Keaton Parks, I guess, was a last-minute injury scratch. And so he got his start and repaid the trust with getting a red card 25 minutes in for a pretty poor tackle, which I don't think he wasn't really on purpose, but it was definitely looked bad. At first got a yellow, and then, when the ref gets called over to the screen, nothing good will come of that. And and he was sent off. And then 3 minutes later, we fell behind, and this really would have had bad consequences. We would have not had a road game, not have a home game in the playoff if we had lost this game. So, but in the second half, with a man down, we managed to come back. Tati Castellanos got a header,
That's right.
goal, and also not only guaranteed a home game, but also secured himself the Golden Boot, which has never gone to an NYCFC player. And so that's very exciting.
Never. The 100 years of the NYCFC history.
In the 7 years of history.
But it was 19 goals, right? Gives him the Golden Boot, I think.
It was this year it only took 19 goals. He had to Ola Kamara got 2, and so he won on the assist tiebreaker. He had more assists than Kamara.
And also we have MLS assists here. We got secondary assists too. I don't know if they can.
Yeah.
But they're a thing we talk about. You know what? I don't know what's going on with me. I don't know why we're a little drop heavy.
We are thinking. We're thinking. What are you thinking about?
That was LA Galaxy. And that's just some of the teams. The LA Galaxy. The Minnesota missed a penalty. And they had an own goal. So they really shot themselves in the foot. Good that NYCFC are going to host Atlanta. Good that there's a good crew coming there. Maybe it'll be close to a full house against Atlanta. That's going to be a big game with Joseph Martinez coming by. Atlanta are no pushovers.
Well, on the other hand, Atlanta has only one win against playoff teams this season out of 15 tries. So I mean, of all the, there was Orlando was a possibility at some point on Sunday, and the Red Bulls even at some point when they were winning looked like we
that
could
would have been crazy.
And so of all of those possibilities, I think I'm happiest with Atlanta. I mean, we have shown that we can beat anyone and we can lose to anyone on the right day. So we'll see. But
that's
yeah, the
what
matchups
MLS is about, baby.
The matchups are your Red Bulls that you felt so uncertain about that they would even make it.
New York Red Bull. We had a midweek tie against Atlanta, I believe, right, 1-1. Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, and then we had a 1-1 tie at Nashville as well.
It was scoreless, right? The Atlanta game.
Oh, was it scoreless? Hold on.
You got the Atlanta. I mean, it was. I actually watched the second half of it, and it was kind of stunning how
it was scoreless.
How
the New York Red Bulls were.
Well, that's one way to put it. Or how destructive Atlanta was in their approach. I'm like, are they really just that much? Do they think they're that much less good than the Red Bulls? I think they didn't have a shot on goal until stoppage time, and
the Red Bulls figured it out.
And we're really just bunkering the entire game, and that was just interesting to see.
I mean, I guess I saw a different perspective, maybe because I see it through Red Bull colored glasses. But that's some of the best soccer I've seen the Red Bulls play all year. Now, granted, they can't finish. Patrick Klimala got suspended because he threw the ball on the ground angrily, so he couldn't play against Nashville, our highest paid player. Thank you very much. And he also can't buy a goal. But he was, other than that, he was doing pretty decent. And the New York Red Bulls just had the ball the whole time, and they had so many opportunities to score. They just could not finish, which again is my biggest sort of note for the off season, is like you got to get more clinical. And I think their defense is tight. The New York Red Bulls have, I think, tied for the most clean sheets in the league. They have the less, they're one of the best defensive records in the league. They're moving the ball well. They're creating opportunities pretty well, pretty okay, and it's just no one can just finish that last bit. So we need more of a finisher. Like coffees for closers, coffees for finishers, like from Glenn Ross. So we need that in the offseason. But, we're striking hot at the right time. Maybe we can give ourselves a little deeper on the playoffs. We'll see. We had a great tie in Nashville. Caden Clark is back to playing as a gun for Omar Fernandez on the field. And honestly, I kind of prefer Omar Fernandez over Patrick Klimala in general. So Klimala being suspended, for me, is a little bit of a blessing in disguise. Orlando, which was 2 spots out, scored 2 really great goals, beat Montreal 2-0 to give themselves a spot in the playoffs. And Montreal, after dominantly playing us last week, if you looked at that game and thought who's going to make the playoffs, you think Montreal. Unfortunately, the New York Red Bulls made the cut, and Montreal, unfortunately, did not. So I apologize up north to our friends in Montreal. Not for lack of trying, though. But did you see that great goal from Mendez from Orlando?
Yeah.
Boom. Curling in. And then Daryl Dike got himself a last-minute goal to remind everyone that he's still around.
I was going to say,
hey,
he's had a pretty quiet season, right? Most of the
ever since the summer, yeah.
Everybody thought once he came back to Orlando, he was just gonna light it up, but that has not really happened.
Yeah, Orlando's tougher than Barnsley. Who knew? Who knew?
I knew.
Colorado. So who has? You do. You know all the things. You know why you know all the things? Because you are out of this world with your predictions and your knowledge. And I just wanted to use that X-Files drop because I love that song. I'm a big fan of the show. So the East ends up being New York. Red Bulls are going to head to Philadelphia. NYCFC is going to host Atlanta. And Orlando is, remind me, what was the other one?
At Nashville. They're on the road in Nashville. And then Nashville England
has not. Yeah, Nashville is, I think Nashville hasn't won their last 3 games. So Orlando's coming in hot, so those are just going to be some fun games.
Yeah, I mean, and then the winner of Atlanta NYCFC will play the New England Revolution, who have the bye, yeah, because they finished first.
That's cold.
That's how the playoffs work.
Out of form Revs. Yeah, they're going to be out of practice. 3 weeks removed from playing a competitive game. So
we'll see. We'll see. Not to get ahead of ourselves. We only have one. We've only survived one round of playoffs in our 100-year history.
150 years now. I just Googled it.
That's right.
Okay. 50, I meant. You guys, ever since George Washington crossed the Delaware,
New York City
first
FC
time
has
NYCFC
had a hard time
kicked the ball.
Playoffs, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so that'll be a lot of fun. The Red Bulls Philly game is going to be a tight affair. Philly as hosts in great form, they'll definitely be favorites. But the New York Red Bulls, I mean, that's a 50-50 to me too. I don't see where we can't scrape out a 1-0 win or go into overtime. You know, it's time for some playoff craziness. In the West, Colorado, of course, made their way in.
Colorado gets the
SKC. Now, the RSL SKC game had a real controversial moment, Bjorn. Did you know that? Did you know that SKC had a big blown handball call? RSL defender Justin Glad just put his hand up and just slapped the ball with his hand.
Oh.
And no call, no VAR, no penalty. And the game went on for the Kroata Deutsche Demir Kaila to score the winning goal. However, if they got that penalty, SKC could have very well been 1-0 up.
Yeah, they would have won the West.
And then the LA Galaxy, they would have won the West. And the LA
Galaxy would have
into the playoffs as opposed to Real Salt Lake. So we had a little bit of a VAR fail. Is VAR perfect? 99999. VAR is perhaps imperfect. Yet the old thing, why didn't they use it? One of the great unsolved mysteries of MLS.
Why?
Why did they not use VAR to double check that handball moment, especially on a big game? Now, if we're up to me, I'm sick and tired of hearing the term clear and obvious. I don't want to hear that anymore because it's such a subjective term that people are treating like facts. I think VAR rules should be very simple. Any major moment involving red, yellow cards, and goals should be allowed to be checked, whether it's clear and obvious or not.
But they do
it
check.
Should just be allowed to be checked.
They do check everything.
They do check like 90% of the time, and sometimes they don't.
But do they interfere?
Been a VAR guy be like, "Hey, double check that." They should. They should be like, "Hey, double check that handball." There should be a VAR guy to be like, "Yo, double check that last handball moment." You know, and then he needs to stop. He needs to go take a look. I don't see the problem with that. I mean, I don't know. I don't know why. I understand they're trying to keep it quick and efficient, but I think they've gotten so good at it that stuff is happening pretty fast in general.
Well, in the Bundesliga, a lot of the time, the ref will just accept the VAR. You know, he'll just be like, "Oh, that was offside. Okay, I don't need to look at it." And then it's quicker. Whereas
and the officiating in the Bundesliga is pretty tight. It's not perfect, but it's pretty dang tight. Yeah.
Yeah,
and all comes from Köln, which is weird, which is funny to me. The entire
they just
all
have
VAR
everybody
comes from one
in
office in Köln.
Well, it's a relatively small country, I guess. It's
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Here in the States,
the
they'll
cable.
Be like,
The
they'll
cable.
be like, hold on,
they
I'm
have
waiting.
to run.
I know. Cable have to run. The
It's
Ethernet cable
relatively
from Colorado
short,
to New
yeah.
York.
It's crazy. That can't be done.
There's like
but
lag.
from Köln to Munich, fine, no problem.
yeah. Here in the States, they'd be like, hold on, there's a minute of lag in my Wi-Fi here. We got to wait for the thing. No, absolutely. And then, so Colorado gets their bye. And then the Western matchup.
Yeah, we have the Timbers, the Portland Timbers hosting Minnesota. Sporting KC is hosting Vancouver. Seattle gets Real Salt Lake. And that's it. And then
now
Colorado waits to see what happens.
Vancouver, again, the guy said how New York Red Bulls is trash, goes to Canada and then does better. Mr. Brian White crushing it up in Vancouver.
Yeah, what did they not like about him?
Because they're a little how do I say, they are the opposite of this.
Richtig, genau. I'm the Master Butcher Master.
They're not the Master Butcher Master because they keep getting rid of good players. They're like, you know what? You keep Brian White. We'll keep Tom Barlow, who will never score a goal in his professional career ever.
If you had asked me to put money on Vancouver making the playoffs this year, I would have declined. That is a real shock, I think.
Yeah, good for that. Overall, Vancouver has been kind of an underperforming franchise in general. I don't know if you've heard the great quotes from the coach. The coach is like, "Thank God there's a week off because we're plastered drunk and we're going to be hungover for days." He didn't say that exactly, but he said something like that, and I frickin' applaud it. I was like, man, more power. I'm glad they're partying up there in Vancouver. They deserve it. They deserve it because they're pretty.
That's the beauty of the playoffs, you know. Everybody starts at zero again.
All right, let's do some quick predictions. So let's start with the West. With Seattle and RSL, you got to give that one to Seattle, I think. SKC hosting Vancouver. Maybe you give that one to Vancouver. Let Vancouver ride. And with the Timbers hosting Minnesota, I would give that one to the Timbers, I think. Those are my predictions.
Those are your predictions?
Yeah.
I would I would pick SKC and Seattle to win. I would go with Minnesota actually over the Timbers.
So you got SKC, Minnesota, and Seattle, and I've got the others. I got Seattle, Vancouver, and Timbers. So one of us is going to be pretty right, but not both of us.
We'll see. Yeah.
And then on the East, we've got, I think, New York Red Bulls and Philly. You know what? I'm gonna do this with my heart. I think New York Red Bulls gets a hard fought 1-0 win. I think NYCFC. I think they're gonna handle Atlanta probably 2-1. And then we have Orlando City and Nashville. Right? I'm gonna give that one to Orlando City. I think
I'm gonna go home team 3-for-3. Philly
for all of them.
NYCFC, Nashville.
So Philly. So you and I said the same thing. We only overlap with one. All right. But it's MLS playoffs, and
anything is
good luck
possible.
Gambling on them. All right, cool. So you have anything left for decision day stuff?
I want to talk about Hani Mukhtar, the German.
Oh, of course.
The
Hani
German. I mean, I don't think, you know, if we're talking about Deutsch in aller Welt, Germans all over the world. I guess he's from the Hertha. He's from Berlin. He was in the Hertha system. Never really made their first team. Then did well in Denmark in Brøndby for a few years, and now in Nashville really has a case for being MVP. He has.
Now he's at Nashville. That's right.
Yes, I think he has 16 goals. Yeah, 16 goals, 12 assists.
Great free kick.
Yes,
there you are. We lost you for a minute.
Oh, really? What'd you miss? Well, you won't know. So, can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry, we're a little over the place. I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I could hear you all.
Yeah. So he scored a great free kick over the weekend. So what were he said 12? You were saying some numbers there, but I think we only
he's 16 goals. I think 12 assists. So really, really good numbers. I think in the end, Carlos Gil is going to win the MVP probably of the New England Revolution, since they've really ran away with the Supporters' Shield. and are clearly the best team, and he's the best player on the best team, so he'll win MVP. But if you just look at the numbers, Hani Mukhtar really has a good case, and he's been very good. And where how he goes, Nashville went this season. And
well, if Nashville win the MLS Cup, then maybe he'll win, because I think that's the other deciding factor of who wins. Because being a great player, like the same thing with Damir Kreilach, he's also an MVP candidate, definitely for Real Salt Lake. But like, you know, and if whichever team ends up winning, that's the sort of the deciding X factor. Then I think leads.
But I think the MVP is only regular season, right? Isn't that don't they announce that before? I think so.
Probably the way MLS, just like how the Golden Boot race ends now, like playoff goals.
That's it. Playoff goals don't count.
Playoff goals do not count. But he with the 16 and 12 assists and 16 goals, that's a very Landon Donovan like performance and the Landon Donovan MVP winner. He definitely will come in as an honorable mention in second over Carlos Gil. No, I 100% agree with that.
And and I think he hasn't gotten a lot of love. I think Nashville in general has just sort of been talked about as this sort of defensive juggernaut, but he has provided some magic this season. And it just goes to show that
it's amazing what they did as a second-year expansion team.
Yeah, very much so. And it goes to show that there is life after the Bundesliga. If you do not make it, you can still have a
sorry, I think we're cutting in and out a little bit here. Yeah, Nashville coming in as a second year. Nashville coming in as a second year expansion team. They got in the playoffs last year, I believe, and they got in the playoffs this year, and they're hosting. So they've had a very different experience than their friends up in Cincinnati, which fired all of their Dutch advisors and are getting rid of the whole Dutch thing. Because who'd have thunk it that Dutch advisement in soccer leads to losing? Only a couple Germans would understand that, but most people would not. Good, absolute good work from Mukhtar. Great honorable mention. I would love to touch on USA Mexico real quick, unless you have any other thoughts related to Decision Day in MLS.
Let's hear it. I think.
The roster came out. Say that again.
What is my audio is bad? No. Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. That's the just to pull it back the curtain a little bit. Here we have a COVID sort of virtual meeting, and sometimes the internet kicks in and out, and then I think we have a little audio lag. So I apologize for listeners at home if we talk over each other sometimes. There's nothing I can do about it. Blame COVID. Blame the world. Don't blame us. So USA Mexico came out. Decent roster. The one big talking point, I'm not going to talk it, everyone's been talking it to death, is that John Brooks has been excluded, which I understand. And John Brooks said this great statement saying, my form has not been up to my standard. I will get called back in when I'm playing better. And that's very big words from a big man. And John Brooks honestly has kind of recovered his form. He's sort of back to his old habits slowly but surely. So, I imagine hopefully by the next camp he will be called back in. However, the one fallback to that is like, well, if John Brooks isn't called in, then why is Mark McKenzie called in? Mark McKenzie doesn't even play in Belgium anymore. He's played 2 out of his last 9 games for Ghent, a mid-level Belgian club. So it's like, well, if Mark McKenzie's included, it's like, how bad? Like, John Brooks isn't even that bad. You know what I mean? Like, it's a little bit of a double standard. And again, maybe this is my Red Bulls talking. Matt Miazga just never, ever gets a shout. I would much rather Matt Miazga be on that bench than Mark McKenzie, in my opinion. Matt Miazga was playing week in and week out with the La Liga club. It's just one of those things that, who knows, maybe there's a personal thing behind the scenes. Maybe Greg Berhalter positions his spot so specific that it goes between a starting defender and a reserve defender, have different standards, right? And John Brooks is only being considered as a starting defender, kind of like a Walker Zimmerman, whereas Mark McKenzie is in a cover spot where I guess he could have a little bit more margin of error because he's not expected to be starting any of the games. Your guess is as good as mine. But at the end of the day, that's one to look at. No Sargent because he's out of form. No Hoppy, I don't think, because he's also not playing. Right. There's only one number 9. and that is Ricardo Pepi. So hopefully he doesn't get injured during the two games.
Yeah, that's what I heard Greg say, that it's only 2 games, not 3 this time. So there can be everybody, can play all of the games, or some. It's not, rotation's not as big a factor this time. And he thinks Pepe can go both. And it's funny how he has become the cornerstone of the team at age 18. He's irreplaceable.
Well, he's been playing well for the U.S. His club form has, up and down over the last few months. And
he could not
struggling with.
He could not have kept up the way he was going. I mean, he had an incredible run there for a second. Obviously, but
shouldn't you have a second 9 option, right? Shouldn't you have a second number 9 at least, just on the bench or something with minutes?
What, Giassi is not going to be there?
Giassi ain't there, man. I think Giassi's injured. But in my opinion, this is extra controversial, I guess. I would have loved for Josie to have been on that bench. He's scoring just for a few minutes.
I don't think that's controversial. I think he certainly should be in the conversation of people to bring in off the bench for sure.
Yeah, he's only 31. He's not like he's not like 35 or anything. I think the one thing is he locker room toxic?
His hamstrings are 55 and 47. No?
That's true, but his brain is 31, and that's what counts. We got Christian Pulisic coming in, only playing a few minutes here and there, so who knows if he'll even start. He might come off the bench. But all I know is a big game next Friday, and then Jamaica finally has their firepower. They have Leon Bailey and Antonio.
And Antonio.
I think of Aston Villa and West Ham respectively, right? I could be wrong about that. And who is in great form in England. We'll see if they can actually add some real firepower to the Jamaican national team. About time for them to get their full reinforcements. So that's not going to be such a sleepy game either. So those are 2 tough games. And, my heart says USA will win 2-0. 2-0, my friends.
Wow.
My brain says there will probably be a tie or maybe a 1-0 win at best. But my heart says 2-0. So let's do it. Yep.
All right. On that note,
that's been this week in U.S. and German soccer. Please click a subscribe or click on the bell notifications here on our YouTube channel. I also post clips throughout the week. And also, please, we're available in podcast forms. Listen to the podcast. Also, leave a review and rate us. And tell your friends about us. We've been the Schnitzel Boys.
It's been a pleasure talking to you, Stefan.
It's been a pleasure talking to you as well, Bjorn, and I'll see you after USA Mexico, where we preview the MLS playoffs. Tschüss, bis nächste.
Macht's gut.
Macht's